My family mocked me for not wanting kids. You'll change your mind, they laughed. When they found out I left my fortune to a charity instead of my nephews, they were furious. I just smirked and said, guess you should have taken me seriously. I, 58 male, always knew I didn't want kids. Not when I was a teenager, not when I was in college, not in my 30s, and definitely not now. I've had more than enough time to change my mind like everyone assumed I would. I never did. But my family? Oh, they had a field day with it. Let me take you back. I'm the oldest of 3. Grew up in a typical middle-class home in Albany, New York. Dad was a mechanic. Mom was a nurse. They worked hard, loved us, but also had very traditional views. Marry young, buy a house, have kids. That was the plan they expected us all to follow. My younger siblings, Brian, 56M, and Rachel, 53F, both did exactly that. Married in their 20s. Kids by 30. Christmas cards every year with matching outfits and big smiles. Me? I moved to Manhattan after law school. Worked insane hours at a firm on Wall Street. No time for dating seriously, and frankly, no interest in having a family. I liked my space, my freedom, my quiet apartment where the only mess was the one I made. I wasn't anti-kid. I just never wanted one of my own. Never had that urge. But apparently that made me a freak at every family gathering. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, wedding, birthday, graduation, the same thing. When are you going to find a nice girl and settle down? You'll change your mind. Just wait. But you'll knock someone up by accident and fall in love with it. You're just afraid of commitment. Oh, you'll regret it when you're old and alone. Sometimes it was jokes. Other times it was said in that half-joking, half-serious way that cuts deeper. But always, they acted like my life was just an incomplete draft. I tried explaining. Over and over. I didn't want kids. I wasn't confused or unsure. I just knew myself. It's not something I woke up and decided. It was something that had been true forever. But they never listened. They waved it off like I was rebelling or being dramatic. Like it was something to be fixed. Brian once literally told me, you just need to get laid and knocked upside the head with responsibility. Rachel called me selfish for not wanting to give mom and dad more grandkids. It never stopped. They even told their kids, my nieces and nephews, that Uncle Rob doesn't believe in family. I found that out from my goddaughter at her sweet 16 when she asked if I was sad I'd never be a real dad. She said it innocently. I nearly walked out of the party. Fast forward to the last few years. My parents passed, dad from a heart attack, mom a few years later from cancer. I was the one who handled all the estate stuff. The wills, the paperwork, the funeral planning. I paid for most of it. Didn't complain. I loved them. But I noticed something around that time. I put aside small amounts for a few family members, enough that no one could say I cut them out completely. But the bulk went to 3 charities. 2 education-focused ones and 1 scholarship fund I helped launch myself. All of it detailed and legal. Witnessed and signed. I didn't tell anyone. Just quietly updated it and moved on. Then last year, I ended up in the hospital for a minor heart scare. Nothing serious, just stress-related. But it freaked the family out. I came out fine, but Brian and Rachel suddenly got real interested in my estate planning. Rachel came over with homemade cookies and questions like, so, do you have everything in order? You know, just in case. Brian called to check on me, but somehow brought up how expensive college was getting. I didn't say a word. Then, about 3 months ago, my lawyer sent out the usual annual summary letter to named beneficiaries. Standard practice. But apparently, Brian opened his by mistake, or so he claimed. All hell broke loose. Rachel called me screaming. Literally screaming into the phone. You left it all to strangers? What about your own family? Brian texted me a string of passive-aggressive messages, ending with, guess we didn't matter after all. Even some of the nieces and nephews unfollowed me on social media. One of them even posted some vague status like family isn't always blood, with crying emojis. That one made me laugh. A week later, they showed up at my apartment. All of them. Rachel, Brian, their spouses. Wanted to talk. It was not a talk. It was an ambush. They said I was betraying the family. That I owed it to the next generation. That I was bitter and jealous and lonely and using my money to get revenge. They tried guilt. Mom and dad would be heartbroken. They tried pity. You don't have anyone. We're all you've got. They tried rage. You're disgusting. You think some poor kids in the Bronx deserve what we earned? That last one? That flipped a switch in me. I stood up. looked Rachel in the eye, and said, calm as ever, guess you should have taken me seriously. They stared, mouths open. No one spoke for a full minute. Then I walked to the door and held it open until they left. They haven't spoken to me since. So, after I kicked them out, things went quiet. Too quiet. At first, I figured they were just nursing their bruised egos. Maybe they'd come around. Maybe they'd cool off and realize how entitled they sounded. Nope. What came next? I never saw it coming. 3 weeks later, I got a letter from an attorney. Certified mail. Heavy envelope. Thick with paperwork. I opened it and stood frozen in my kitchen reading it. Brian and Rachel were contesting my will. Contesting it. Like I was already dead. They weren't just angry anymore. They were preparing for war. They'd hired a lawyer, one of those slick, family law guys who smiles like he's selling you a car. The letter claimed I was mentally unfit when I made the will. That I had been coerced by outside parties. That I wasn't of sound judgment. Basically, they were trying to prove that I didn't know what I was doing when I left the money to charity. That I was too old, too alone, too vulnerable. I laughed out loud. A real belly laugh. Because it was so absurd, it felt fake. But my lawyer, Michael, didn't laugh. He called me right away. These things can get ugly, he said. Really ugly. And long. Now here's where it gets even messier. While we were prepping for the legal drama, my niece, Brian's oldest, Kayla, went on TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but Michael's in turn found the video. She made a whole post. A video montage of family photos, me at birthdays, weddings, cookouts, with sad music playing. Then she starts talking, with tears in her eyes. My uncle abandoned us. He had everything, and he turned his back on his family. We were supposed to inherit his legacy. Instead, he gave it away to people who don't even know his name. It blew up. Hundreds of thousands of views. Strangers were calling me heartless, saying I was punishing my family, calling me bitter and cold. While all this was happening, the lawsuit, the online smear campaign, Brian had gone through my house while I was away. Yep, my second home in the Catskills. The one I rarely use but keep fully furnished. I found out because my neighbor, Gina, texted me, hey, your brother's car has been parked here all weekend. Everything okay? Nope, not okay. I drove up, furious, and found the front door unlocked. Some drawers had been rifled through. A few documents moved around. Nothing stolen, but it was clear they were snooping. I called Brian. He didn't answer. Then I called the cops. That's when he finally called back, trying to sound calm, like he hadn't just broken into my damn house. I was just looking for some of Dad's old stuff, he said. Relax. Bullshit, I said. You were looking for something to use against me. He didn't deny it. Just said, well, if you're gonna treat us like strangers, then don't expect us to play nice. I hung up. I started locking down everything. Changed my will executor. Moved some money. Set up new passwords. Locked the house tighter than Fort Knox. But the cracks were showing. The stress was eating at me. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating much. I started wondering, how far would they go? Then, and I swear I'm not making this up, I found a hidden camera in my apartment, tucked behind a photo frame near my bookshelf. It wasn't mine. I called Michael in a panic. He called the cops again. There's an investigation pending. But I know who did it. Who else? They were trying to get something on me. Some way to prove I was unfit. Something they could twist in court. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about money anymore. Not just money. This was about control. About power. About punishing me for making my own choices. They couldn't handle the fact that I had a different definition of family, of legacy, of worth. And when I didn't play the role they wrote for me, they lost it. But I wasn't about to roll over. So yeah, the hidden camera thing shook me. I started sleeping with the lights on. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always watching. And I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was scared. Really scared, that my own family might try to frame me for something. It wasn't paranoia. Not anymore. Michael was calm, but even he was concerned. This is more than just a will contest, he said. They're trying to ruin you. This is personal. He was right. What happened next just confirmed it. A few weeks later, I got called into HR at the firm I used to work for. I'm semi-retired now, but I still consult occasionally. They said they received an anonymous complaint that I was mentally unstable and harassing younger employees. I laughed out loud right there in the office. They didn't. Apparently, someone had sent them edited audio clips. My voice distorted slightly. It sounded like I was ranting about getting rid of the young blood and cleaning house. Total nonsense. Fake. We traced the source to a burner email, but come on. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind it. Brian used to work in IT before switching to real estate. Rachel's husband does AV work for a private school. The pieces were fitting together. They weren't just trying to get my money. They were trying to destroy my credibility. Make me look crazy, unstable, dangerous. Why? Because if they could discredit me, they could take over everything. The charities I chose? One of them started getting weird emails too. Accusations that they were exploiting an old man with declining faculties for his money. That they were taking advantage of a lonely bachelor with no heirs. I had to personally meet with the directors, explain the situation, and assure them my decision was made freely, legally, and with full mental clarity. It was humiliating and infuriating. But then something shifted. Out of nowhere, my nephew Daniel, Rachel's youngest, reached out. He asked to meet for coffee. At first, I thought it was a trap, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked a public cafe downtown. Wore a wire, just in case. He showed up alone. Hoodie, nervous smile, no phone in sight. I could tell he was uncomfortable. I don't agree with them, he said quietly. I don't think what they're doing is right. Uncle Rob, they've gone off the rails. I blinked. You know about the lawsuit? He nodded. They talk about it constantly. Mom thinks if she pushes hard enough, she can get a judge to deem you incompetent and take control of your estate. Even while I'm alive? He looked down. Especially while you're alive. That's the whole point. She wants control now. I felt cold all over. Then he pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. I've been recording them. My heart stopped. He had hours of audio. Rachel and Brian, in their living room, laughing about how they'd take everything eventually. How they'd make Rob look like a lunatic. Even talked about planting something illegal in my house. I stared at the screen. My own family, talking about framing me. He sat there, watching my face. I don't want any of the money, he said. I just want to do the right thing. I didn't cry, but my hand shook the entire way home. Michael was stunned when I gave him the recordings. He said this changed everything. The court could hear it. It proved malicious intent, fraud, maybe even conspiracy. But then came the next twist. 2 days later, Daniel's car was torched in his apartment building garage. Yeah, torched. Fire department said it was arson. No one was hurt, thankfully. But his laptop, the flash drives, everything gone. He called me from a payphone. I think I'm being watched, he whispered. I booked him a hotel under my name in Midtown and paid in cash. Told him to lay low. Michael hired private security to keep tabs on him. And I made copies of every recording he gave me. 3 flash drives. 1 in my safe, 1 with Michael, 1 with a friend out of state. They thought they could scare him into silence. They didn't count on how far I'd go to protect him. They also didn't count on one more thing, my backup will. Years ago, on a hunch, I had drafted a second will. Same charities, same details, but this one included a poison pill clause. Basically, if anyone contested the first will, they'd be completely disqualified from any inheritance, even the small amounts I'd left them out of courtesy. Plus, a legal clause kicked in where their share would automatically go to a secondary nonprofit. Michael kept it locked away. We never expected to use it. Now we might. And the best part? They don't know it exists. It all came to a head 3 months later. By that point, we were deep in the lawsuit. Depositions were being scheduled. Court dates looming. My lawyer, Michael, said we had enough to crush them, legally. The poison pill clause, the recordings Daniel got, the camera in my house, the smear campaign. It was a mountain of evidence. But something inside me still needed more. Not just legal revenge. Not just a win on paper. I wanted them to see what they'd done. To face it. To sit in their own filth and realize they pushed me to this. So, I invited them to my apartment. Not just Brian and Rachel, but their spouses. A few cousins. Even my late father's best friend, Mr. Salvatore, old Italian guy, now in his 80s, who always played peacemaker when we were younger. I told them it was about settling the matter once and for all. They came, obviously. I could see it in their eyes when they walked in. The hunger, the smug confidence. Like they already saw themselves cashing checks. Probably thought I was going to cave, cut a deal, throw them a bone to avoid embarrassment. They had no idea. I stood at the head of my dining table. Daniel was there too, sitting quietly, hood up, pale but calm. Michael stood beside me, laptop open. I didn't waste time. I know you've all been very concerned, I said. So I thought I'd give you the full story. Rachel started in immediately. You mean the story where you abandoned your family to give your money to complete strangers? Brian jumped in. Or the part where you convinced a kid to betray his own mother? I held up a hand. Then I clicked the mouse. The first recording played. Rachel's voice, loud and clear. We'll say he's mentally declining. No one will question it. He's old. He lives alone. No one sees him regularly. Brian's voice, exactly. We frame him as paranoid. Get the court to freeze the account. Once we're in control, we can rewrite the whole damn will. The room went silent. Rachel turned white. Brian's mouth just dropped open. Click. Second recording. Rachel's husband. If we plant something in his apartment, it'll force them to investigate. Worst case, they freeze his assets until they figure it out. Then Michael dropped the printed transcripts in front of them. Every word. Signed, dated, time-stamped. I looked straight at Rachel. You tried to frame me. She shook her head. That's not what you think. Michael cut her off. It's exactly what we think. And if you'd like to explain that to a judge, be my guest. Brian stood up suddenly. You set us up, he spat. This whole thing was a setup. You broke into my house, I said. You planted a camera. You faked HR complaints. You tried to paint me as a lunatic. I just wanted what was fair, he yelled. We're your family. You don't get to claim that title while stabbing me in the back, I said, calm but firm. Then Daniel stood up. He was shaking. You tried to burn my car, he said quietly. You knew I had the recordings. You tried to scare me into silence. Rachel looked at him like she didn't recognize him. How could you do this to us? She whispered. Your own mother? I learned what not to be, Daniel snapped. That's what you taught me. Mr. Salvatore, who had been dead silent until now, suddenly banged his hand on the table. Hard. The sound cracked through the air. You should all be ashamed, he said. His voice was hoarse but strong. You took this man's loyalty, his kindness, and treated it like a piggy bank. Your parents would be disgusted. Rachel started crying. Real tears. He was supposed to care about us. We were his family. You were supposed to respect his choices, Mr. Salvatore shot back. He didn't owe you his life savings. Brian stormed out. No apology. Just rage. His wife followed. Rachel collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Her husband stared at the table like he couldn't process anything. The rest of the room sat in awkward silence. No one knew what to say. No one expected the truth to explode like that. Daniel was the first to break the silence. I'm sorry, he said to me. For what it's worth. I nodded. You did the right thing. Michael handed over the final paper, the notification of the will clause. The poison pill. Rachel stared at it like it might bite her. So that's it, she asked. No, I said. It's not. I looked her dead in the eye. Your share is gone. Your husband's, too. Your kids? They still have a future, if they choose not to be like you. But as for you? You made your bed. They left in shame. No more threats. No more emails. The lawsuit was dropped 2 weeks later without a word. Daniel's living in a new place now. Still finishing school. We talk sometimes. He doesn't want money. Just peace. I told him he's welcome anytime. Michael and I finalized everything. The charities are in place. My estate is safe. My legacy is clear. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't cost me. There are days I still feel hollow. Angry. Not because they wanted the money, but because they wanted it so badly they were willing to destroy me for it. I miss the idea of family. I miss Sunday dinners, birthdays, laughing with people who didn't see me as a bank account. But maybe that version of my family never really existed. Mr. Salvatore calls every now and then. Just to check in. Says he's proud of me. Sometimes that's enough. I didn't write this to get pity or applause. I wrote it so maybe someone else out there, someone dealing with entitled family or manipulative relatives, knows it's okay to draw the line. To choose peace over obligation. To protect what you built. They mocked me for not wanting kids. They said I'd die alone. But I didn't. I chose my legacy. And this time, I chose it for me. I'm not lonely. I'm free.